Hello and welcome to Tommy Talks TV. I have one singular goal with this show, and that is to help you make smarter decisions so that you can have better relationships. I'd like to start as usual by saying a very big thank you. Thank you for all your likes and your shares and your comments on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. I really appreciate you because you're helping us spread the message further faster. So thank you very much indeed. Now today I'm going to be taking another one of your questions, and it goes like this. We recently moved into a new home and there seems to be a mutual interest between my husband and a neighbor's wife. She seems to be very impressed with him and keeps talking about his hands-on skills and abilities. She also talks condescendingly about her husband each time she's praising my husband for his ability to do many things. There are many signals that point to the fact that my husband is also sexually attracted to her. He easily finds fault in me and he corrects me in harsh tones. Things are changing in our marriage and I can feel it. I'm also inadvertently beginning to react through mood swings and snapping at him. I haven't had cause to feel this way in our years of marriage. I think confronting him will not help, since it's all suspicion and no evidence. He may deny it all and turn it all on me. I trust him, but I think he's blindly encouraging what he might not be able to curtail. What should I do? Now, this is a very tricky situation to find yourself in because obviously, on the one hand, like you said, there's really no hard evidence per se that there's anything going on between the two of them. But on the other hand, as a woman, you're intuitive. Many times, as women, we sense things even if, they don't seem to have manifested yet in the physical. So you're sensing that things are changing in your marriage, and you're probably absolutely right. The truth of the matter is this: men respond to honor. Men respond to respect, and what this woman is doing is that she's giving your husband honor and respect. She's praising him, she's giving him admiration, and that is going to be attractive to him. That's the reality. That's going to be attractive to him. And maybe at this particular point in time, he does not recognize that he's vulnerable to her, but he's actually vulnerable to all that praise and all that admiration and all that. So there's clearly a challenge that needs to be addressed here. Now let's talk about what you shouldn't do. So the first thing that you should not do is to attack this woman or maybe try to assassinate her character with your husband in a bid to stop him from being attracted to her. Because the reality is this: if you do that, then there's a likelihood that he will actually begin to defend her, because at this point in time he's vulnerable to her emotionally. So he might begin to defend her, and that might work in the opposite, because if he's defending her, then it might actually make him feel like he has to stand up for her, and that is not what you want to experience. So assassinating her character, talking about her being a terrible person, or whatever, or that she's trying to snatch your husband, that will absolutely not work. And the thing is this: ultimately, she is not your issue. Your husband is your issue. So just leave her completely out of the equation and focus on your relationship with your husband and how exactly to make things work. The second thing to also mention here is that you've got to be careful about how you're responding to him, because obviously there are a lot of things that are happening in your mind at this particular point in time, and because of that you are reacting to all those things that are happening in your mind, and like you're saying, you're possibly now beginning to snap at him, and you're not treating him in the way that you normally would. The challenge with that is that if you persist in doing that, it will make her look more attractive to him than you, because she's giving him what he's looking for, and you on the other hand, you're not treating him with respect and with honor and all that. So this really, regardless of how you feel, this is the time for you to double down on your respect, on your honor, on showing how grateful you are for him, because sometimes we find that in marriage we tend to take our spouses for granted. They do all these things and we take them for granted, and then somebody else comes along and then they see those things and they begin to talk about them, and obviously our spouses are vulnerable because of that. So ask yourself, have I actually begun to not notice the things that my husband is doing? Have I begun to not be appreciative of him as a person? And double down on your appreciation, on valuing him and verbalizing the way you feel about him, verbalizing, the value for him, not out of fear, but because you actually do value him as a person. And that's something that you need to build into your marriage long term. The third thing is this. Now you've said that your husband is beginning to correct you in harsh tones, and he's criticizing you, and that can be really very, very hurtful. And I would say that, well, while you don't internalize the criticisms, but then at the same time you need to examine if there are specific things that he's complaining about. Then you've got to actually ask yourself, are there issues here that I need to address? Are there things here that maybe I have overlooked, I've not been paying attention to, that I do need to work on? And that's something that you need to begin to think about, and be open to see, well, if there are things that you need to adapt or adjust, then be humble enough to do so. Because again, sometimes we let things slip that are actually really important to our spouses. If there's something that he's been harping about, he's been talking about for quite a while, and maybe you've not paid attention to it, but this is the time to actually sit up and begin to pay attention to it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what you do is you want to position yourself as the person that is actually right for him, and for him to actually be able to see that in you. And I think that's really, really crucial. Naturally, there's a tendency for you to feel insecure in your relationship when it looks as if maybe potentially your husband is attracted to somebody else. But what you cannot afford to do is to allow that insecurity to seep into your relationship with him and to determine the way that you respond to him. So you've got to be careful about how it is that you're responding to your husband, and that's really crucial. The last thing I would like to say is that ultimately you've got to recognize that your husband is responsible for his own actions. So you cannot take responsibility for how he handles himself in the relationship, in the marriage, and you've got to be able to trust that he will handle himself rightly. I would encourage you, to cover your husband with prayer, cover your marriage with prayer, cover your home with prayer, and trust God that, he will be faithful to you, and pray about it. And, try as much as possible to not leave him in a position where he's constantly, with this woman and all that. But ultimately, he's responsible for his own actions. He's responsible for himself. But you do your part as, his wife, and then trust God to help him to do his part. Well, I hope this has helped you. If this has helped you, then please leave me a message on Facebook, on Instagram, or YouTube, or wherever it is you're watching. And if you've got a question you would like me to answer, then head on over to tommytalks.com/ask, and I'll answer your question next time. See you next time. Bye-bye.